Okay, so today we're going to flush out the seawater side of the cooling system. The engines on your sailboats work kind of like the engines in your car. You have basically a radiator, which is here. However, on your car you can get wind through the radiator coming through the front grille, or they have a fan when you're sitting at idle. On here we can't really do that, so the way it works is we have seawater that comes up through the engine. Comes up through the impeller, and then in through here, which cools the coolant side of the cooling system, so that you have clean coolant antifreeze that runs through and cools the engine. Through wear and tear, barnacles and different things come up through there, and it can clog the system. So today we're going to use Barnacle Buster to clean that out, and then at the end we're going to pull this cap off here to make sure that this is clean as well. Sometimes what can happen is if your impeller disintegrates, pieces of that come up through the hose and then they get stuck in here. So even if it's cleaned and descaled, you still have big rubber pieces that are stopping it. So we'll show you how to do that today. For this, you need to remove the actual impeller. So this is always a good time to check it and make sure that yours is still in good condition. I went ahead and removed mine already, and if you want to see how that's done, you can see my servicing a Yanmar engine video in the link above. But for now, we'll go ahead and get started with the descaling. As you can see here, we got the Barnacle Buster solution. It's a 1-to-4 mix. I have a hose which is attached to the intake for seawater with a valve here. I'll turn that when we get ready to start. And then I have a bilge pump put into the solution, which is actually going to pump the solution through the engine and then back out of the exit hose here. I'll go ahead and remove this hose and then drag that over to the bucket. And once that's in, that will have the water return into the bucket, and it'll keep a constant loop going through the engine. This way we can make sure that the entire engine is descaled with the Barnacle Buster. It recommends running the solution for an hour, so we'll let that go ahead and run through. Now that the Barnacle Buster has completely gone through, we want to wash out some of the acid. So you take a freshwater bucket, put the bilge pump in there, and then have the exit hose go into another container. That way all the fresh water gets, or all of the fresh water washes out the acid that's left in the system. Alright, as you can see, I got a little bit different clothes on, because when we opened up the heat exchanger last time, we realized that we had the wrong gaskets for it. So depending on what model you have two different gaskets. So you have either the straight gasket or the round gasket with the little triangle in there. This is what I got originally, but this is not what is on my specific engine. So I'll send that one back to Niemec Marine, and then we'll replace the gaskets that are in there with this. And then also you have a round gasket as well. We already replaced the one up front here, and we'll replace the one in back today. So now that we've used the Barnacle Buster to descale the inside of it, we'll pull all this apart. We'll pull off the fuel filter here, and then we'll pull 4 or 3 bolts and 1 nut off of the front of this to replace the seals here. One thing I already did is I drained most of the water out of the heat exchanger. There are a couple valves on the front and back of the heat exchanger, and then also what I did is I pulled this tube out off the impeller to allow a lot of the water to drain out. When we did open it up last week, we found 2 impeller blades stuck at the beginning of the heat exchanger here, and then there was also a 3rd one in the actual hose here. So make sure you check your hose for any bits of broken impeller when you're doing this. So we'll go ahead and remove the end caps now. Alright, so one of the things you can do is check with the light to make sure that all the tubes are clear. Make sure that all the pieces are gone and it is sufficiently descaled. Alright, so we have the heat exchanger put all back together with our fuel pump mounted again. We made sure to look for water coming out the exhaust to make sure that water is coming through the impeller and through the heat exchanger and out the engine so that everything's running correctly. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Now I'm ready to see, I'm ready to